I'm 77 years old, and there's something my wife told me for 40 years that I never truly listened to. Not because I disagreed with her, not because I thought she was wrong, but because I thought I had more time to prove her wrong. Her name was Eleanor. We were married for 44 years. From the outside, we looked like a steady couple, 2 grown children, a modest house in Ohio, Sunday dinners, quiet vacations at the lake. We didn't have drama, we didn't have scandal, we had structure, and structure can hide a lot. Eleanor used to tell me something that, at the time, felt almost irritating in its simplicity. She would say, "You're building a life you don't even live in." I used to laugh when she said that. I thought she was being poetic. I thought she was exaggerating. Now I understand she was being precise. When I was 30, I believed that security was everything. My father lost his job twice when I was a kid. I remember watching my mother cut coupons at the kitchen table like she was fighting a war. I promised myself I would never let my family feel that kind of instability. So I worked. I worked weekends. I worked holidays. I missed recitals. I missed birthdays. Not all of them, just enough. Eleanor never screamed about it. That wasn't her way. She would sit at the edge of the bed at night and say softly, "When is it enough?" And I would answer, "Soon." Soon was my favorite word. Soon when the promotion comes. Soon when the mortgage is paid. Soon when retirement is closer. 40 years of soon. Now here's the part I didn't understand back then. Soon isn't a plan. It's a delay disguised as hope, and delays compound. The truth is, I wasn't just working for security. I was working to outrun fear. Fear of not being respected. Fear of being average. Fear of becoming my father. I told myself I was protecting my family, but what I was really protecting was my ego. Eleanor saw that long before I did. There were moments she tried to pull me back. She'd suggest simple things. Let's take a long drive this Sunday. Let's sit outside after dinner. Let's not plan everything. And I would respond with efficiency. We have time. We'll do it next month. After this project. After. Another word that sounds responsible. Another word that quietly steals life. In our 40s, she once asked me to take a pottery class with her. I remember the exact tone I used when I said no. Not harsh, just dismissive. I'm not the pottery type. What I meant was, I didn't see productivity in it, and if something didn't move us forward financially, I saw it as optional. Optional became everything she loved. Necessary became everything I chased. We weren't unhappy, that's important. We were stable, we were polite, we functioned well. But functioning is not the same as feeling. In her late 60s, she stopped asking as often. That should have alarmed me. It didn't. I interpreted her silence as agreement. It wasn't agreement, it was adaptation. There is something dangerous about a partner who stops pushing. It feels peaceful. But it's actually distance settling in. When she was diagnosed, everything slowed down. Appointments, medications, specialists, tests. The future I had been preparing for suddenly felt theoretical, and theory doesn't hold up in hospital corridors. One night, about a year before she passed, she looked at me and said, "You don't have to earn rest." That sentence unsettled me more than her diagnosis, because I had built my entire identity on earning money, earning respect, earning safety. I never considered that maybe life wasn't something you earn. Maybe it's something you inhabit. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, sit with that. Ask yourself whether you're earning your life or living it. If stories like this help you reflect, consider subscribing and staying connected. These conversations aren't about guilt. They're about awareness before it's too late. As her illness progressed, I began staying home more. Not by choice, by necessity. And for the first time in decades, I had stillness. Stillness terrified me, because in stillness there are no metrics, no progress bars, no quarterly goals, just presence. I realized I didn't know her daily rhythms anymore. She had favorite mugs I had never noticed, books she had read twice, music she played when I was still at the office. I had been living in the same house, but in a parallel universe. 3 months before she died, she asked me something simple. If you had stopped trying to prove yourself at 45, what would have actually happened? I started listing financial consequences in my head. She stopped me. No numbers, she said. What would have happened to us? That question didn't have a spreadsheet answer. It had a silence. We would have had more ordinary days, more shared boredom, more small risks, more evenings that didn't end with me staring at a screen. The night before she passed, her breathing was shallow. The room was dim, machines humming quietly. She squeezed my hand and said, "I never wanted more from you. I wanted you here, not here physically, here fully." I thought I had been. I hadn't. There's a difference between occupying space and offering presence. I occupied, she offered. After she was gone, the house didn't feel empty. It felt revealing of how much of my life I had deferred. I sat in my office one morning and looked at the framed awards on the wall, plaques, certificates, recognition. None of them knew her laugh. None of them knew her favorite song. None of them could remember the way she would squeeze my arm during movies. I had spent 40 years building evidence of competence and neglected evidence of connection. The hardest realization wasn't that I worked too much. It was that I believed I would eventually arrive at a place where I could finally relax, finally engage, finally slow down. But arrival is a myth. Life isn't something you reach. It's something happening while you're planning. If you're in your 40s or 50s, this is the part you need to hear clearly. You don't get extra decades as a reward for discipline. Time doesn't accumulate like interest. It disappears like breath on cold glass. Eleanor had been telling me the truth for 40 years. You're building a life you don't even live in. And I ignored it, because it required me to redefine success. Success, as I understood it, was measurable. What she was asking for was immeasurable. Attention, spontaneity, shared stillness. There was no promotion attached to that, no applause, no external validation. But that's where life was, in the unoptimized hours, in the unnecessary conversations, in the slow Sundays. The last promise I made to her was simple. I'll stop waiting to live. I meant it, but I would give anything to have meant it earlier. So if someone in your life has been gently telling you something for years, listen, not defensively, not strategically. Listen openly, because the most dangerous mistake isn't dramatic failure. It's gradual postponement. It's believing you'll step into your own life later. Later is not a destination. It's a delay, and delays compound. I ignored what she told me for 40 years. Don't ignore yours, while you still can.